I will jump to the agenda here and what we have in store. So we're going to focus most of the time on Geo. I know there's a lot of Geo fans here. And then after, we're going to wrap up with a few favorite moments and wishes. Some of you sent in to Yao, and if you didn't have a chance, it's okay. You can share them when we get to that point. And then we're going to also share a little bit of looking ahead, what we have planned in terms of our thematic priorities. And then we're going to do a group photo because why not? It's the last one of the year. So yeah, it should be good. So stick around for that. But if you can't, if you have to drop off, as always, that's totally fine. We're going to post the recording so you can catch up afterwards. And then we're going to have an after hours. Those have been working out really well. The last one was like 30 minutes or more. So we're going to do that again this time. All right. So we're going to jump into Mural. I'm going to get Yao to pop the link in the chat, but I'm going to share my screen for the first little bit, so don't worry about navigating just yet. If you're traveling and you can't open Mural, that's okay. I'll try to share my screen for the most part throughout. And if you want to add your comments to the chat, that works as well. So don't worry if you can't bring it up on your screen or on your phone. And then feel free to ask questions as we go through. We don't have a lot of time. We only have about 35, 40 minutes for the geo portion of it. So we're going to try to move along, but ask questions in the chat or feel free to stop me at any point if there's anything that's confusing. So can everyone see this okay? Maybe a thumbs up. Yeah, should be able to see this. I'm going to zoom in and maybe you can tell me if this is like a good level for everybody. That seems okay.
That looks good for me.
See this little cutie here? Okay. So if you're in Mural yourself, just go to the big blue arrow. I'll walk through the different boards in just a second. Baptiste, I can see you flying around here. That's good. Some Mural tips if you haven't used it before. At the bottom of the screen, you can kind of zoom in, zoom out. You can also use the space bar to kind of pull yourself along. That's quite handy. And then I really like this little feature down here. If you click the map icon, you can kind of scroll around the map a little bit quicker than the space bar. And then if you want to create a sticky on the left side here, you can just grab a sticky note and make it bigger, do whatever you like. So if you're new to Mural, those are kind of some like good key tips. And if you just prefer not to use it, that's also okay. Just write it in the chat and I can add it to the board. So the goals for this workshop, we want to understand needs for capturing and editing a geolocation. We'd love to hear a little bit about why you use certain appearances and when you use them. And then our third goal is to understand if the needs for collect are different or the same for web forms. So as a lot of you know, we're working on developing a new web forms, and we want to learn from collect and also adapt where necessary, or maybe also some of those ideas that come from web forms can influence collect, and we can make the experience consistent, or if there are certain needs that kind of want us to move in a different direction, that's also okay. And they can be different experiences that we really want to hear from you as to like what works best for your teams, data collectors, and also what you expect from editing if you do have to edit a submission. So all of that will help us learn about your different workflows a little bit more, your geo workflows and different perspectives if we haven't heard from you. And it'll help shape the next round of design and user research. So we've spoken to a few people about geo and your needs, but we'd love to hear from a wider group. And in terms of mindset, I don't think we need to tell this group these things, but open and generative. I feel like this is such a lovely group of people, and the ideas are always flowing and always like super positive space. But what I do want to mention is that there are no bad ideas, and strange ideas are good and encouraged, because it also helps us think about the problem from a different perspective. So there will be space to add some things maybe that you've been thinking about, but maybe haven't posted on the forum. There'll be space for that as well. And we'll try to make sure that we can hear from everyone on the call. And maybe I'll call on everyone to make sure if I miss anybody or if there's something in the chat, please pause me or just kind of stop me. And we can spend a little bit more time there. So maybe I'll zoom out just really quickly. Oh, I can see all of the cursors. So what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to move this. I am going to, sorry, the Zoom toolbar is right in front of my mural toolbar. Okay, so I'm going to ask to be followed. So you should all come to me now. Okay, great. So I'm going to bring you all to this section here. So this is just a little bit of context to set the scene. Maybe you don't use Geo in your workflow, but you're actually quite interested in it. So I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page before we get started. A lot of this will be pretty familiar to you all. So I have the appearance type on the far left, the goal, what that flow looks like visually, yeah, I'll just kind of go through them quickly and then we can jump into the exercise. So hopefully this is a good Zoom level, everyone can read it. So the default geo point, and the goal here is get data collectors to help in getting that highest accuracy point as possible. So this doesn't require any data, nor does it require any map literacy, or maybe the map isn't necessary in your particular context. So what that looks like, keep zooming in here. We have you launch it, get the point, you get that dialogue, the accuracy dialogue, you can save, and then you end up on this screen where you see the coordinates, which you can then change. That's our default. And for Enketo, all the appearances are the same. So the only real difference here is that hint text, but you can see all of the functionality. So that's quite different than the collect experience. And I'll just zoom down here. So for the map, the goal here is, again, to get that highest accuracy possible with the data collector's help. But the difference here is that you can use that map as a reference. And then you can kind of see up top that there's some instructions there to tap to add the marker. You can clear it and save. And again, you can view and change that as well. And then in Enketo, same thing, you can see all the appearances, whether or not you're capturing or editing afterwards, editing a submission. And then lastly, map placement. So this is really similar to the maps, but the difference here is that you can move the marker manually. So if I zoom in here, again, you have the instructions there at the top. So you do the long press or tap, and so that you can really change and move the marker around, clear the old one, you can save the marker, and then again, that last screen is the same. And Enketo again is the same as before. The only other one I wanted to mention is the start geopoint obviously doesn't have any UI, but you can start that and it automatically captures. So those are just to kind of get everyone on the same page for the geopoint capturing experience. So what I would love to do now is move over to this side of the board, and I can release everyone so you can float around. We'd love to understand what works well from these different appearances when they don't work well. And if you could give us a specific scenario, that would be really helpful, and the tool you're using. I know some of you are using Collect, you're not using Keto for capture, maybe for self-report or that kind of thing. We'd love to hear which tool you're using it for, and then if you could write your name as well. So the example here is the default GeoPoint works well in Collect because I don't want data collectors seeing a map as it doesn't add any context. Maybe when they're in the forest, I've heard this in user research. And so that might be an example of something you want to write down as something that works well, or maybe you don't think the default GeoPoint makes sense. Maybe there should be a different default. So I'd love to hear things that are confusing for data collectors that you've seen over time, what works well, what doesn't, and then there's a space for the kind of wild ideas or things that you would hope for, and then this other section over here is for editing. So if you do edit the points on a submission, we'd love to hear why you do that and what scenarios, what works well and what doesn't work well. So I'll put 10 minutes on the clock, but maybe before we do that, does anyone have any questions before we jump in? Was there any in the chat? Yeah. No. Okay, cool. So I will and if you're in transit and you can't see this, you can put them in the chat and I'll add them. And I'll stop sharing my screen just for this section, just so that you're not navigating two screens here. Okay, it looks like cursors have stopped moving. Oh, okay, I would love to spend a few minutes talking through some of these, the ones that got quite a few votes. I'll zoom in here. Hopefully this is big enough. The Silent Collect works really well with the map. Setting accuracy threshold gives great data set quality without having data collectors having to think about anything or understand that concept from Baptiste. Another one around all collect appearances are great for different scenarios, but mixing appearances can confuse enumerators. And then another one on the satellite count, quite helpful as a default. And quite a few people voted on that one. Maybe I'll jump to, not to only focus on what doesn't work well, but would love to hear what can be improved. Maybe you can start up here with this one. Andrew, do you want to quickly share a little bit more about this one?
Yeah, sure. So I almost always use offline layers of some form, and when your enumerators have been using those in the field to collect their geometry, if you need to make an edit or if you need to make a submission via Enketo, then you kind of can't make that submission at all because you can't see that offline layer, so you have no idea. And there's only a single engine, which is Google, and there's very limited zoom. And yeah, generally with most of my work, you just can't see what you're expecting to see there. It's just blank. So you're kind of stuck unless you then open up another like QGIS with that map layer, create your geometry there, export all of those points, and then paste them in slowly, element, but lat long, one by one.
Mm-hmm. See lots of nodding heads. Mathieu, do you want to share yours quickly?
The things that working
summary.
well.
Mm-hmm.
A summary, okay. So for me, everything works fine actually in Collect. We don't really use Enketo for the moment. Maybe something to get better could be the zoom level when we use a GPS. We are very far from the ground, so systematically we have to zoom in to confirm the point. What else? And some that's all for what does not work very well. And see, maybe the summary of the point could be a map. instead of coordinates.
Yeah,
or both maybe.
that's good
And,
feedback. Yeah.
And what I do hope for is to be able to see on the map all the points or other things we drew before in the form. Robson talked about parcel mapping, and we do something like that, and it's not easy to draw a new parcel without having the first ones on the map. So we have a lot of overlapping parcels, and that will be very useful. And maybe also for some specific protocols, it will be great to be able to show the geotrace of the guy on the map. So we should be sure that the enumerator can be sure that he went in all the place he had to. So, but we are really satisfied actually about Geo in ODK and use it a lot. So
Great, thank you. Did anyone else want to share one thing that isn't working? Well, it doesn't have to be one that had a lot of votes. Not everyone has their name on their stickies. Does anyone else want to share one quickly? Come off mute. There are a lot of ideas for what people hope for. This one got quite a few votes of being able to see other geometry at the same time as collecting geometry, either from a CSV, entity list, yeah. Navigating to a selected existing point using offline background maps. Anyone else want to share one of their things that they hope for?
Yeah, I can share one. First, I'm
Yeah.
very aligned with what Matthew was saying about being especially when you map farmers, or when you map plots, being able to see the submission and seeing all the polygons coming is otherwise we are doing a lot of work on cleaning the overlaps. And so in terms also on what we hope for, we're using Enketo and collecting actually people address. It's quite confusing, and we had a lot of people that couldn't submit the form because seeing the latitude and longitude was a bit confusing, and that was causing like blocks because I don't know if linking it to like Google Maps or something that people are more used to. Put their own address or their own address would be a bit easier.
Just good feedback. Okay, I want to be mindful of time. So thanks for writing the edits, or why you edit a point as well. Please keep adding to these afterwards as well. I would love to move on to sharing some ideas that we have, and I've just covered it up here because I know as soon as people see a link, they go to it, and then I've lost everybody. So I'm going to bring everybody over to me quickly. We have maybe about like 10 or so minutes here. We're going to go through all of your feedback. And if you could add your name so I could follow up with you, maybe we could do a quick call, or I could over email just clarify a few things. So I'm going to try to group some of the themes and we'll summarize them. Okay, people are already clicking the link here. So just before you do click that link, really hold back. Self-restraint here before you go to it. There are 3 user flows in that link. You'll see something that looks like this. You can kind of click through it. This is really simple. We don't have a lot of time, so we're just trying to keep the prototype really focused for this workshop. We have the default point, and then we have the map, and then edit from a web forms perspective. So at the beginning, I said that we would love to hear what we want to borrow from collect, and as we're thinking about web forms, what kind of concept should we consider there? Should it mirror the collect experience? Should it deviate? So as you're kind of moving through those prototypes, and they're quick, just get your initial thoughts. Try to focus on the user experience. If anything doesn't make sense, or maybe something doesn't work, or if the link doesn't open for you, because sometimes prototypes just decide to not work. I have all of the screens below, so you can just kind of follow those and add sticky notes on top, or you could add them in the sections above. And so try not to focus on, I don't like that color blue, because I hear you, that's fine. But I would love to hear more about maybe the experience doesn't make sense here, or I'm confused what to do at this point. So as you move through the different 3 prototypes or flows, try to note down some of your initial thoughts. And then our goal would be to maybe do a one-on-one with some of you, get more feedback, and can show you the more extended prototype. Does anyone have any questions before you start jumping into that? I can see people are already there. You're already in it. So go for it. And then we'll come back and discuss. Maybe we could have 3, following, yes. Maybe we could have a few people that haven't had a chance to share yet. Maybe you could share one of your stickies, or maybe 2. Maybe what worked well, what was missing, or what could be improved. Some folks we haven't heard from yet. Sorry, I know a lot of you are still in the middle of typing.
I'll say something really quick here.
Yeah, great.
I just noticed that on the original collect, there was latitude, longitude, accuracy, and altitude, and they're all vertically aligned on different lines, and that's more quicker to read, I feel like, but it is going to take more real estate. So it's just, I think, a question of, you want to take more real estate, or do you need to be quick? And so
yeah, that's a good piece of that's good feedback, Tyler, because like you can use more real estate. Like this is more of the editing experience, but we did explore, you don't see the behind the scenes of like the different options, but we could explore something that's a little bit more stacked, or like you said, that might be a little bit easier to scan. That's good feedback. Anybody else want to share?
I did notice that the altitude was gone. I didn't see altitude on the default point.
How do you feel about that?
I always like seeing my altitude because I feel like GPS, different devices, that's where you can sometimes see, like, I don't know, I feel like there's, for me, if I see that it's 15, 20 meters off in altitude of what I think it should be, then, it's taking that point. I feel more concerned.
Maybe another person before we jump off, maybe Florian, Joseph, Collins. I'm just going through the names on our list. Anyone else want to share quickly?
Can I offer a counterpoint to the altitude?
Yeah.
the devices we used, they were always completely off in altitude and altitude accuracy. So we were working mostly on sea level, working on turtles on beaches, and our altitude should have been about 0 to 1 to 2 meters plus. It came out as 10 meters plus, so 20 meters minus, or 40 meters minus. So altitude was far less accuracy than the actual lat long. So for us, there was no metric of whether the GPS fix was good or not. But maybe it was because we used relatively low-end devices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good
But I love the rest of the forms, and all of that looks really sleek and really well designed.
Cool. I know, yeah, we're eating into your time, but I'm so curious. As
Yes, you are.
always, as always. I would love to hear maybe from one more person before we switch over, and please add your name so I can follow up on some of these.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Oh, yeah. With web forms, when you click a location, it would be nice to get either the address of the place or to get a parcel number. This is quite useful in local government in the context of maybe a user is submitting an application for permits.
Mm-hmm.
So basically,
That's
an
good.
ability to talk to a third-party API and query it and receive information back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. We did explore that. It didn't make it into what you're seeing today, but that's helpful feedback. Thank you for that. All right. Yeah, maybe I'll hand it over. I'm so keen to keep going through some of these stickies, but I will hold back. Yeah, I wish we had more time, but I will switch over. Okay, allow. Oh, that's okay. I'll stop sharing. There we go. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ali, for giving me the opportunity to talk. Great. Well, that was really exciting. Great to see all the feedback on some of the geo stuff. I want to take, since it's at the end of the year, our last Insiders Call, I wanted to take some time to talk through some of the favorite moments that folks have shared with me, and the wishes for ODK going into the new year. So only a couple of these. Some of them are some of my personal favorites as well, as far as like highlights from the insiders and officer calls. Alan holding office hour sessions during my daytime and apparently this person's daytime. My guess is that this is somebody who lives in the ocean in the Australia, New Zealand area. So it's great that Alan got a chance to do that. We're hoping to do more of those if Alan permits. The lightning talks, I agree, have been really fantastic. The security insiders call, that one has become an instant classic. I've heard from a lot of folks who have made improvements to their setups from that call, so I'm glad we got a chance to do that. We still do have the audit report coming out soon, so I'll share that when we pay the German hackers to hack ODK Cloud. We want to share those results to everybody. The small group discussions have been very good as well, I agree. A lot of love for Jakub and his experience and others sharing their experiences, so thank you everybody who's done that. And then finally, Dominica, Cal, Simone, and the rest of the team. I know Cal is here, I think Kathleen is here. It's always great to see them on the calls and contributing. So those are some of the favorite moments. Some of the wishes going forward. I believe when we asked for these wishes, we said we weren't going to promise anything. Right, so I'm going to try not to promise anything when I say these wishes, because I will get in trouble, and I don't want to get in trouble. I want to stay on everybody's good side here. In 2025, the wishes for ODK certainly more continued success and improvement, And this person put and in brackets media with entities. We hear you. That folks want media with entities. Seen already drawn objects on the map. So a lot of geospatial features. All of these wishes and features have been added to our user library. Alen, Ali, and I meet regularly to look at the user library, all the feedback, and see how we can slot that into the roadmap. More entities and geo capabilities. We hear you there. I'll have more on that in just a second. And then for ODK to remain free at the point of use. Of course, ODK is open source. We work really hard to make it as free as possible. It's not easy. I got to tell you, when I put on my business guy hat, it's definitely not easy to make it all free, but we think that's really part of the value proposition. And it's our intention to keep ODK 100% open source and as free as possible going into the foreseeable future. And as always, we always welcome everybody's contributions as you are able to contribute. Being an insider is a huge contribution, providing feedback, answering support questions, all of these help take pressure off the team so we can continue to make the features that you want. So that's what we are all aligned as far as the wishes going forward. Now, speaking of going forward, what's coming? People always want to know what's coming. Internally, we have a list of goals that we set in 2024, another team set. And in the spirit of transparency, we want to show you how we did on some of those goals to see if we're passing or failing. So we wanted to ship offline entities. Offline entities are here just in the nick of time. Basically, there'll be a central release, hopefully by the end of the year, that will enable them by default. So that's coming. So fantastic, great work by the team to push that out. Maybe if I tell a little story, I had lunch with Alen. At some point, we're talking about the roadmap. This is like last year or 2 years back. And I was like, why don't we do offline entities? She's like, it's so hard, it's so hard. I was like, well, let's just do it. And so that was how we started offline entities. So I'm glad that it shipped. So thank you to the whole team. Ball creation, being able to upload via CSV, that's in. That's something a lot of folks wanted. We're done that. We have received a failing grade on reducing the number of entities sent to, we can't get everything correct on the number of entities sent to clients. Baptiste, I'm sorry. I know this is something that you also wanted. This is something that we want to work on next year, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Web Forms is out. We have the Web Forms preview. Trevor has been working really hard on that. We have a lot more functionality in the pipeline coming over. It's now available in Central as a preview. I want to do more there. We shipped a bunch of learning resources. I think Ellen had said, like, everybody always wants more learning resources. It's like something people expect. It takes a lot of work to produce them, but we've been very consistent and want to do more about creating those learning resources. A new website, we've been talking about this internally for years. We actually have a beta of this website. It hasn't been able to get over the line, but we want to launch a new website with even more resources, things like change logs, blog posts, and stuff that users need. And then I think we've done a lot to strengthen the community. The Insiders is a great example of one of those efforts that we launched in 2024 to try to strengthen the community. So we've done well on that front. But in Insiders, and we ran some meetups. We actually ran a meetup in Nairobi. We ran a virtual meetup. I'll be doing actually a little virtual meetup with Hot OSM in a couple hours. So we're doing a bunch of these meetups and trying to get the word out about ODK. 2025, the work continues. Our priorities are to release web forms, make it production ready, and get it out in the world. A new ODK website I've committed internally, now I've committed publicly, so I have no excuse now. We really do have to launch the new website. Being able to edit submissions on device. We promised that to folks. We're not able to ship it this year, but it's been designed. We just need to build it. So good progress there. And then more entities. Now, we've underlined the word could. I did not underline the word could. Ali and I believe Alen underlined the word could because we don't want to overpromise. The things that we're expecting is that being able to create and update multiple entities with a single submission, smoother entity workflows, like being able to delete entity lists, these kinds of management of entity lists. We want to be able to improve that, and we know that it's painful. Being able to customize how those entities are displayed to end users, so things like sorting, we know that it's important, the sort order. And then entity ownership. Here again, we know that if you have, let me just pick a random example, maybe you have farmers or farms and you have hundreds of thousands of them, you don't want them all in one entity list, right? Or you want to be able to segment them and isolate them. We know that's super important. Like if you create an entity, it should be assigned to you. Those kinds of things we want to improve on. And then user management is something that we're actively working on. Some of you have seen some of the prototypes. So these are the things that we have in the pipeline, and we could release next year, or rather we're hoping to release. The bottom line is that web forms, new website, entities, geospatial are going to be our priorities for 2025, and we're hoping for some big wins early on in the year. Next steps. If you have a desire to test the new edit and GeoFlows, this workshop is sort of our first pass at it. We'll gather the feedback and try to do another round. So if you're interested in doing sort of more one-on-one time with Ali to dig into these workflows, please let us know in the chat or email Ali. Ellen has promised, I don't know, I can't see her in the video, but she's promised, I don't know if she's nodding, that she wants to do another entities office hours on December 12th. So that's an early Christmas gift from Ellen to the community. Very nice of her to do the entities office hours. She might even be able to speak French and or Spanish. I'm not making any promises doing that entities office hours. So I will put an email out about that, an exclusive insiders opportunity there. We'll be doing a data collectors workshop early next year. I think it's going to be February the 3rd. And so this is going to be an open virtual meetup, more focused around data collectors to get their feedback on how the data collection is, geospatial data collection is working on the mobile and in web form. So we'll send out an email about that as well. So those are the things that we have coming up next. And remember, there's no call in January. So Ali took all my time, but I was able to wrap up really quickly. really quickly. And so I want to end this with a big thank you. So thank you to the team, to Ali, Kathleen, Cal, Jegosh, everybody, Lindsay, everybody on the team. There's about, I guess, 14 of us, 16 of us now working on ODK, and they have been working night and day around the clock to make sure that these features ship and that they're fast and safe and reliable. I feel like we're both going very quickly, but we're so eager. There's like so much more to do. No matter how fast we go, there's always more to do, and so we're excited about getting those features out. So thank you to the team, and then thank you to each and every one of you who's an insider. Again, your contributions are good for motivation of the team. They're important for how we keep ODK relevant and innovative and progressing. So thank you for the time that you spend participating in the community. It really is key to the project's success.